you know, respond to critics? How, I think a lot of people are very curious to see how he's going to go about it. Do you think it's possible to see a change?
When you talk about change the narrative, maybe I'm almost sure. In between his speeches, of course, he has Rigathi Gachagua. In between his speeches, he has somewhere to mention that, you know, what he had planned with a broad-based government before Right Honorable Raila Odinga passed on. In between his speeches, we can predict he will mention to Kenyans that the people of the locations with by-elections should elect good leaders, like he appointed his good deputy. So we can already tell the political narrative that will be somewhere just in there between his a lot of vocabulary in English. But I can tell you one thing for a fact: you cannot blame anybody for your own downfall. And if anything, you need to pick up your failures and fix them up, because I believe every financial year there's a budget.
Right.
Let's even assume, just like any human being, he was unable to do it in the first financial year and the second financial year. Why don't you try do it right now? Why do you have to keep postponing when you'll start fixing things? Why do you have to come and give us a critic or an analysis of the failures you've done, but you're trying to make it look as if it's our perspective that makes it look like failure, but from where you sit, it's a lot of progress. So I think that the president and his team of members need to maybe, after the whole press and everything, they need to just work on the remaining financial year and ensure that they can at least do things better, because I can tell you for a fact, you cannot waste comrades 2 months' time. You cannot waste the resources that their parents had paid for them, because Majuis will tell you, for comrades who had paid hostels and everything else, nothing has been recalled to the next year, or they are told that the money you had paid this year for the hostel, don't pay another amount next year. They'll still pay. And I can tell you one thing for sure, it's very painful, because you've wasted resources for Kenyans and you've wasted time for those young people. Then come 2027, imagine a comrade who was supposed to graduate in August 2027, for them to be able to get a job once the next parliament comes into session. We'll have to wait for 2028 August graduation, because you wasted their last semester in this year. So I think, apart from him looking for political reasons to make it look why development is not happening, and worst of it all, we've had his deputy, who he claims is very wise and does not disturb him, tell the people of Mbere that if they don't elect the people that their party, which is UDA, is fronting, they're going to stall projects in that location. So we're talking of a president who has audacity to threaten Kenyans that if you don't vote for me, these and these people, I'm going to stall projects. Right. The same thing he has done in Mount Kenya. And I always ask the people of Mount Kenya and other areas where projects have stalled, if this president really means it when he says that you need to build government for development to come into your areas, Nyandarua County has one of the many members of parliament who are still supporting his side. We have 4 members of parliament who support the side of Kenya Kwanza regime. We have only 2 who support the united opposition. So if it's about who supports you more, then I think progress in my county should be moving forward very swiftly. Right. But you cannot tell the people of Mbere that if they don't elect your candidate, you're going to stall projects. Yet, in the same Mount Kenya region, Mau Mau projects have stalled, yet you have always had the numbers to do impeachment, to pass finance bill. So it means you are double standards. You are just using theoretics to try and make the people of Kenya, who in his mind, he thinks are very ignorant or very are going to shy away from facing him heads on. And I want to tell the president today, before he does his press, because we realize that he has been one of the people who has set up police officers and other intelligence services. Instead of them going to work on how our security will be improved, their work is to just maneuver from one station to another, picking out the critics who criticize his government. We need to be very honest with him and tell him, the people of Kenya, this by-election, from Mbere North to Malava to Magarini to wherever else, are going to make sure, the people of Kenya are going to make sure that they teach you a lesson. Because we cannot allow what we call leaders in office make it look like a by-election is the only opportunity for projects to be brought in your area. Can you imagine? We have PSS moving from offices in Nairobi to go to Mbeere North and promise them that I'm going to bring you electricity, I'm going to bring you piped water, I'm going to bring you this and this, as long as you give our candidate this chance. Are you telling us that your government is going to politicize even development? Are you going to tell us that in areas where by-elections are not happening, this development will not be prioritized? So the whole address thing should maybe, after he's done with it, he should narrow it down and ask himself as a leader, you know, because once he's done with his tenure, we will now have an opportunity as Kenyans to grill him. And I am telling him and his Kenya Kwanza regime that if there is a generation that is going to bring them into book, it is our generation of leaders.
Right.
The 14th parliament, and that is why I keep telling every other voter that please vote in leaders who can be able to bring accountability. Maybe the ones that are right now there are an extension of parliament, but would you please bring a different set of leaders who are going to bring accountability, because we have a chance and opportunity. Majis will tell you the law allows us, even 5-10 years down the line, to bring into record or to bring into our courts anybody who was involved in corruption, anybody who misappropriated our funds, and anybody who was involved in any criminal activities during his tenure in a public office. Yeah.
One of the biggest letdown, and I would like Majis to get it on that, making a comment Jerry made about micromanagement and you know, how he makes decisions around if it's the cabinet. So let's say, for instance, what Njeri is saying, what if the next person who's voted in is also like Ruto? You know, how can Kenyans be wiser in terms of knowing this is the kind of leader we're getting into office? Because one of the biggest letdowns has been this parliament, some critics have said.
Let me start by saying that I don't think we can have a worse president than Ruto. I don't think so. Because even today, Kenyans are not expecting anything new. The only new thing Ruto can say is talking the truth. If he talks the truth, those will be news. And some of us, we want him to talk the truth for once, for his own sanity, not even for the nation, for his own psychological and emotional health, not for the nation anymore. Because it has reached a place, any word that comes out of his mouth, it's a lie after a lie after a lie. You see, some people are even questioning, I don't want to use that heavy word.
Yes, please don't.
But a person who comes and see a bunch of women and tell them, you know what, from next month, the gas that you are refilling with 1,500 will be 300 shillings. And women who are suffering somewhere in the slums of Nairobi, in form of settlements, they are relating that they have seen a savior. Only for him to come and say, I didn't say the gas, I said mtungi ya gas. He changes the whole narrative again. A person who flies with a 200 million chopper, private jet, which was the genesis of even one of the genesis of the Gen Z revolution. Then he comes to the country and says, you know what? It was not even my own means or the taxpayers. Somebody from, a friend from Saudi Arabia or somebody, they hired it for me. Why didn't they hire for other presidents in Africa? Are you the only president in Africa? Are you together? We're having a person, when you say that we might have another president who will equal to Ruto. We are looking at all other presidents and they are becoming like a saint when you compare them with Ruto. Himself, Ruto, what he says today, I'm sure when he walks out of that door of parliament, all he had said, he will forget. And he will give another reason what he said. When you come to Kenyans and tell them that we are coming with affordable houses, and what we are doing is not, we are charging you money so that you can be the first people to get the houses. The people who are being deducted the money, the workers. And then the same day, you have forgotten what you have told the workers, the teachers, the civil servants. You go to the Mukuru slums and tell them, the reason people are fighting my affordable house is because to them, they can live in good houses. You people are living in slums. And they're happy when you are living in slums, but they're okay living. That's what the affordable housing is for you, it's not for them. But it's a duration of the difference of 2 hours when he was addressing the civil servants, telling them, these are your houses. He goes to the slums, find the hustlers, the Walalahoi, he tells them, those people, they don't want you to own houses. These are your houses. That is the kind of a man we are dealing as a nation. That's why you see, even the foreign relations that Kenya had with other African countries and Western countries, it's becoming something like, it's worrying. It's worrying because what the Western countries thought the man he was, they came to realize he's the opposite. You see, we have, since we had Kenyatta, Moi, Kibaki, and Uhuru, Kenyan has been known as pivotal, as the pinnacle of stitching East Africa together.
Right.
Peace has been negotiated in this country of our brothers. But we have for the first time a government, Sudan government, accusing the president of this republic of funding militia, RFS, to go and butcher children and women in their country. They write a letter. We have our president being discussed in Congress, in Senate, in US, for having to do some businesses with the Al-Shabaab, with the militants in East African countries. We have a person no one outside our borders can trust him anymore, including our neighboring countries. And you are telling Kenyans that what if he can change the narrative? We don't want him to change anything because he can. This is that year that you have tried to push him. Can you be real? We are the Kenyans. We are telling you the truth. We are draining as a nation. There is no country left.
Waziri, let's get Waziri in on this. Do you agree with Majus what he's saying in terms of Kenya's diplomatic ties? Has this regime, President Ruto's, dented Kenya's diplomatic ties?
Yeah, just remind ourselves, remember the issue of Polisario that he messed, and while Polisario is part of the UN system, remember the issue of appointing ambassadors to Hargeisa, while Somalia we know is one. Remember the issue of pronouncing himself on Israel against Hamas, and that is something that went counterproductive. Remember the issue of RSF. The other day he was being interviewed, and he said those are people from civil society. And yet we know at KICC, there were militia who are preparing themselves only to be hustled out of the place because they realized it was very undiplomatic. Remember the issue of DRC, trading with some minerals from DRC at the exchange of messing our name. Remember the failure of Raila to cling the position at AU is because he has been rubbing the wrong way even our neighbors Tanzania. Remember President Museveni did not go to, while endorsing Raila here at home, he did not go to Addis Ababa to vote for Raila. These are issues that we feel the president has embarrassed this country. And that's not the only issue. There are many other issues that those of us who have done some study in diplomacy, we know he has gone ultra vires, the institutions of diplomacy, and the issue of us having some kind of good relations with East Africa. Remember when he was in China, what you are saying, that they are going to institute world order with Chinese. Who are we really to say anything like that in China? Remember saying that our economy is better than most of our neighbors. That is very undiplomatic. It's not supposed to come from the mouth of head of state, even from the mouth of a simple member of parliament. These are some of the things that has made us look like we are pariah within the region. If today any president within the East Africa, the 9 countries of East Africa, was to say anything, none of them will say anything good about President Ruto. These are some of the things that happen, and it's an embarrassment to anybody who understands what we call international relations. It is an embarrassment to us. It's also an embarrassment to the state of Kenya, because Kenya shall live beyond William Ruto.
Right. Njeri, one of the things that has been highlighted, I think it's the Standard, if I'm not mistaken, is the issue of corruption, rampant corruption in this government. And President Ruto hasn't been talking about corruption lately, if you've observed. What does that say about this government compared to the previous regimes, and how big of a deal it was for any government official to be caught with a scandal?
But why would he talk about corruption when he's the biggest beneficiary? You know, the the president of this country does not have a problem with corruption. When Baba was alive, you saw him have a audacity to call UDA MCAs to a meeting, and Baba held a meeting with the ODM MCAs. And after that meeting, the impeachment of Sakaja was not heard anymore. Do you want to tell me that they came, sat down and agreed now the policies that you want and I want are the reason as to why we cannot impeach this man? No. Kenyans can see beyond those kind of lines politically. I can tell you for a fact, one thing that the president of this nation is okay with, before he's even okay with him being a president, he's okay with corruption, as long as you give him his share. And we, as young people, have been going to the streets to say that, you know what, the people that you acquit every other day, you know, if there is a president who in his cabinet, in his parliament, members of his party, who have so many pending cases, and not cases that we can talk about minor cases. We are talking about cases as serious as corruption, as murder, and all those sort of things. For him, I think for him, he's okay being associated with these people, because recently we saw at JKIA about the drugs that had been caught up.
Right.
And you didn't hear him address it,
right,
but he will be on TV addressing Rigathi Gachagua for drinking tea in the morning with embedded people. He will be on TV, and his CSS will be on TV calling out United Opposition for being seen together in a picture. But you'll not hear him talking about drugs that were caught in JKIA. You also won't hear him talk about anybody who was caught with corruption money. I've seen the story of Central Bank of Kenya about we will get a new note, if not it's already in the process, of 5,000 note. Why do we need a 5,000 note when Kenyans don't even have the 1,000 note in their pocket? Why are you trying to you know, you want to us to we are able to, if like for instance you have 1 million, it's easily packed now in a 5,000 note than a 1,000 note. Mm-hmm. What are you trying to do? We can all read through the lenses. It's money laundering. He wants it to make it very easier. We've even had stories of people that nowadays, if as long as, you know, during Uhuru's regime, we used to see our security forces, DCI and everybody else nab so many laundry schemes. In this regime, you will hear of a gold scam, but the person in the gold scam is somebody you see every other day with a certain CS. The person you see involved is somebody we all know is seen with who and who's. And the question that we as Kenyans keep asking ourselves is, if the president was really innocent, he would by this time have called this guy out. You cannot be arrested with drugs and your recent photos are with you with a certain CS, and the president is not even concerned about it. And that's even aside. If you as a president feel that you are really honest with us, why would you fire some people then bring them back to cabinet? Yet we have told you the reasons as to why we wanted them fired is because of these issues that we find not okay with them. But why should we, as Kenyans, again, believe that you have intention to fight corruption when all cases that involve corruption, most of them are your friends, most of them are people who are seen to support your government. Today, if you're in opposition and a scandal is found alleged to be you are part of it, it will go to court very fast. It will be processed very fast. But if tomorrow you wake up and sing those narratives of second terms and everything else, you can be sure your case will silently just go down. So for President William Ruto, we know he's not worried about corruption, right, and we have seen it in every impeachment of any governor that has roamed around. Look at our city, Nairobi City has for the longest time, we have been complaining about insecurity. This is the same president who was very much okay with goons and people aligned to certain politicians that he support coming to Maandamano to correspond with the police to fight the Gen Z. But he did not talk. But today he wants to tell us of how concerned he is, because where is this money coming from? Again, you're talking about giving churches 20 million, 30 million. You're talking about empowerment programs giving us 100 million within a period of 1 month. The person giving is barely 1 year into office as a DP. The person giving is somebody in your government. That means you know very well this money is ill-gotten, but since it's playing the politics that you want, you have no problem with it.
All right. Still on the issue of corruption, and of course, Majus, we know that the Auditor General has presented several reports in Parliament you know, that have to do with corruption allegations. So what does this say about our independent institutions? You know, Kenya hails itself as a country that's come quite far in terms of democracy. Are we going backwards?
No, I think we can give a positive nod to our institutions. We are not where we would have wanted to be, but we are making strides towards that direction. One thing I can say that in this regime, it's not corruption. It's more than that. It's plundering. There's difference. Corruption is the simple thing like bribery, fraud, and embezzlement. But plundering is a larger scale, systematic way of freezing a country. And the reason I'm saying it's systematic, it's because you have talking about the Office of the Auditor General, and she has done a good job. She has come and told Kenyans, look, it's not the issue of corruption of a contractor has come and have been told we need 10%. There are money that Kenyans correct. We have a place that we correct our money called the e-citizen. And the Auditor General is coming and telling Kenyans, you know what? The money you correct through the e-citizen, they have another outlet that even myself, given mandate by the Constitution to audit, I cannot be able to tell where that money is going. There are other 11 accounts that are siphoning over 11 billion Kenya shillings from the taxpayers. Are you getting me? So it is systematic. It's something that has been systemized by this regime. And former CS Waziri Kirwa said that if you look at Ruto, who micromanages everything, he has never come out to deny that what the Auditor General said. That, you know, that is something that was supposed to make even Parliament stop any other activity of the day and call the Auditor General and ask, what are you telling Kenyans? Can you be able to explain to a Saturday 2 kid that we are correcting money, but we cannot be able to tell where that money is going, that we have 11 accounts that we can't tell that are siphoning the money? Even the president, if he was not part of that system, he could have called the entire government to know such grand scale theft that is happening. So we are not talking about a person who is doing funny corruption. We are talking about a person who is plundering the nation. And woe on even the president who is coming, because I don't even know where they will start. Because I can see a scenario whereby by 2027, Kenya will be literally on its knees. There will be no money, whichever level. Not for the basics, not for even any project. Kenya will be literally begging with a ball to other nations for us to survive. It is becoming a shame that if you look, we boast to be a bigger economy than our neighbors. But our neighboring countries, they are able to feed their people. The cost of production, you go to Uganda, I have seen when we had some highlights here, that a trader was saying he was able to buy a pineapple in Uganda at 90 shillings. But here in Kenya, the same pineapple is trading at 300 shillings. And Uganda, we are almost twice the economy of Uganda. The people, the beans, you see most of the cereals you see here. You go to Marikiti and leave the number plates of these traders that are bringing those cereals. All of them, they are coming from our neighboring here country, Tanzania. But we are boosting to be the leading economy. How comes they have been able to reduce their cost of production to a point that they can be able to export some of the food stuff to Kenyans, and we are, even Kenyans, we are preferring them because we can afford. But you cannot afford an egg from a Kenyan farmer. You cannot be able to afford a pineapple from a Kenyan farmer, but you can be able to afford from a Ugandan. Because what is happening in this country, and that's where we are going wrong, is that when you give a president who is known in his entire career to be a thief, nothing else you have ever done in this country. We had even the former president who came and said, you know what? I don't have an issue whatsoever with my former deputy president. With my deputy, in fact, he was a deputy president. I don't have an issue. But let me tell you, all the grand theft that happened during my tenure, he was the architect. Kenyans told them, you can go to hell. Tunataka huyo mwi. And the thief came. When the thief came, he did not only steal the resources, he even stole the souls of their children. Yes.
Waziri, I think it might be hard for Kenyans to grasp how a country with such strong independent institutions can be kind of like held hostage, so to speak. How are we in this situation? What does that say about, you know, our democracy? How is it that a president is able to overwhelm our strong institutions?
Well, our institutions are about 10 years old because some of them were formed after the promulgation of 2010 Constitution. And the character of the current president is actually very simple, very forceful, and is also very persuasive. That's why even the bishops, half of them believed that he was going to take us to Canaan while he was taking us the opposite direction. And also, he has also been able to use the power of the presidency. The power of the presidency has not been whittled down. Despite even the devolution, the president is still a very powerful individual in this land. And therefore, he's been able to use the carrot and the stick. Where judiciary seems to want to stand and to be respected, he takes away the money from them. Where parliament tries to stand, he calls some of them. That's why the other day he said he has practically met every member of parliament. And when he meets them, of course, he exchanges some little money. And you see, I was in that house for 20 years. And for the 20 years, I knew there is no member of parliament, sitting or former, who has enough money to himself. When you are elected, your pay slip is the size of this phone. And after 2-3 years, your pay slip is 4 times the size of this phone because you've taken a lot of loans on top of other loans. And therefore, your net income may be 100,000 if you are lucky. Some of the situations that used to prevail in the office of Comptroller and Auditor General at that time where people were earning negative salary because practically you do not have enough money for your own daily survival. Therefore, you take loans. So when he's given $500,000 by the president, that person is totally decimated from his capacity to perform. And some of them, they use threats. And knowing today that almost every member of parliament is a victim, except perhaps the senators and women MPs or those who are representing the counties, because every member of parliament is as at his disposal 190 million every year. And some of the projects, to say the least, if there was proper audit, if that office of the controller and auditor had proper audit, almost half of, if not 3/4 of members of parliament will be taken to court. And therefore, the president has the file. He uses that to tell them, if you guys, you play around, I'm going to tell you, are going to be taken to court. And of course, you've seen several of them being taken to court. So when the president is single-handedly interested in negating the institutions of the state, he has that capacity to do so. And let me tell you, the issue of democracy and governance are two separate monsters. There are some countries which do not have democracy, but they are very strict when it comes to issues of governance, such as China. But here in Kenya, it's not only democracy that is suffering, but the issue of governance institutions are suffering. The anti-corruption, the appointing authority is the president. Or the DCI, the appointing the ultimate authority is the president. And this therefore means whoever is occupying the top position in that particular institution also owes it to the president, owes it to a president that does not care about the law, does not care about what the public is going to say. And therefore somebody knows I'm on my own and therefore I have to listen to him. This is the irony. And that's why those of us who are in the alternative view is that we must restore confidence. We must restore trust in the institutions of governance so that in future, when a president swears, he swears to do what is required by the Constitution and by the law, and also what is expected of a public, the Republic of Kenya.
But how can that trust be restored? I mean,
It will take a lot of
practical
effort.
sense?
It will take a lot of effort. It will take a good person, because let me tell you, when the late Murtala Mohammed took over the country called Nigeria through a coup, within 24 hours, everybody was in the office, because there was no nonsense man. And within the few months that he was president, before he was murdered, everybody was disciplined.
Right.
When the late Jerry Rawlings took over the country called Ghana, there was a lot of restoration of discipline. When Kibaki took over this country in the year 2003, even policemen were arrested for wanting to take a bribe, because the public said, here is a man who understands that the resources of the public belong to the public and do not belong to individuals who are presiding over those institutions. So it will take just a serious team of individuals who will say, corruption is over, governance is here, democracy is here. That restoration will take an individual. Ruto may not be able to restore anything, because people already know that there is a lot of deficit in trust for the institution of the president because of the occupier of that particular office.
Right. Jerry, I don't know what you think about this in terms of, do you think this governance and strengthening governance should extend in terms of how, if, you know, when a government takes over or a regime takes over, how they are able to change an institution? Let's talk about, you know, for instance, from NHIF to SHA, and how other, you know, getting the housing levy in place. Do you think that in terms of there should be laws and regulations that determine how this institution should be changed to the next? I mean, that conversation.
Yeah, of course. I think we need to, you know, our constitution is a very good constitution that when the people who wrote it down, they made provisions that we can always keep adding into it in regards to the circumstances that come in future, because some of the things were not foreseen that time. When we talk of devolution, whatever today we see was not something that would have been seen from the reality perspective 10 years down the line. I feel that we as Kenyans need to take more charge, and I think maybe the law should also tell us how many laws should a member of parliament have done. It is 5 years of working. You can't tell me we've paid you for 5 years as a member of parliament. There is nothing, even one reform, no policy, no nothing. We can't even remember what you ever said in parliament. There is nothing for you to substantiatively tell us that this is what I did when I was in parliament. I think we also need to come up with a way of the model that we use in county governments and in national governments in terms of development. Can we have a progress in that? If I come in as a governor, or if I come in as a member of parliament and find this project was ongoing, I don't stall it and start my other new projects.
Right.
We have governors who have stalled projects of other previous regimes and started their own new creation. We've listened to Governor Nakuru County tell us that, you know, when I came in, I was first doing I don't know what and what. I've not started my own. And in reality, you will find whatever was there is not even what she has followed up on. She has been completely her own things. I think we need to fix our constitution, because we need to amend some of these acts, because if we don't, we are setting up ourselves for so many started up projects, and if it's something like NHIF, when we are shifting NHIF to SHIF, the only difference is the N and the S, but it cannot cost us a whooping 100 billion, 104 billion. What do you mean changing from N to S, 104 billion? What about if you change the whole, the whole thing? It's going to be almost half a trillion, you know? So I think government, when not really the government, it narrows down to our voter. Our voter needs to be very keen. What is the role of a member of parliament? Right. Legislation, representation, and oversight. You cannot tell us you are bringing into office somebody who has no understanding of even the current constitution, and you want them to amend it to suit the nation of today. that person will never fix it for you. And we need to move away. We as the voters need to move away from the perception that a member of parliament should build classrooms, they should give bursary. We need to move away from that. We need to fix everything in terms of policies and reforms, because everything narrows down to policies and reforms. Because if we had certain reforms that made it a process for government to bring in such changes from NHIF to SHIF, we would have taken time to before the 104 billion was spent. But remember, we didn't even have a public participation. And again, I also feel that our constitution needs to give a chance for these, for government, parliament in particular, to prioritize public participation. You cannot tell us you have allowances, you have travels for members of parliament to go sit down and make laws, but you don't have a budget allocation to allow people of Nyandarua, people of Nakuru to sit down and tell you what they feel should be prioritized. Because if Kenyans were given an opportunity, and which many Kenyans wrote, many letters were done to parliament, but they were quite ignored. So we need to upscale the laws that enforce public engagement in terms of these changes as they happen. And we also need to structure out how institutions can change. Just like Waziri said, today we cannot go down to tracking whatever happened in NHIF, maybe the last few financial years, because maybe that information will be told it was errors by error, it was formatted by error, you know, change of system, a lot of information was put out and it's no longer accessible. So I think we need to fix it, because if we don't, we are spending too much time creating new things, and the ones that were already existing, we are not able to audit them, you know.
Jerry, as you make that point, you mentioned something about, you know, members of parliament having played a part in all of this, you know, the importance of Kenyan voters in voting for people who understand law. But we have members of parliament who are learned, who understand law. So is it loyalty that drives them to stick there? Because we have them who are supporting, you know, President Ruto's laws, or the laws that he's pushing for.
You see, that conversation is usually a very difficult one, but I always say, I wish we were saying all of them were understanding the law, then we can now narrow down to their responsibilities to apply the law. Because we have a problem whereby, and you've heard even the my party leader, DCP, Rigathi Gachagua, talk about, we have a problem whereby we take to parliament people who will just say, my party has said we should vote yes. Then they'll come on TV, they'll go to parliament and say, you know what, Mr. Speaker, we didn't even read that law. You listen to some of our nominated senators asked to describe finance bill. They cannot. Yet comrades and young people are able to describe what the finance bill entails. So I think we should have bare minimums. And I think it's time. You cannot tell me that as a nation, for you to employ me as a doctor, me as a lawyer, me as a simple thing, as a secretary to a person, to a cabinet minister, a PA, a secretary, researcher, to a member of parliament, I need a bare minimum of certain diplomas, certain degrees. But for the MP to be an MP, he only needs a birth certificate and an ID that says he's a Kenyan. What do you mean? If you need bare minimum qualifications, for me to be a blogger in a media team of the State House, a degree for me to take videos of the president. But again, in that cabinet, there are people that we know didn't go to school. What are we doing as a nation? You know, we need to put education qualifications to these elective posts. Not to say that there are people who are not educated, who have not done proper jobs. I would tell you, those who have done proper jobs when they were in those political offices have heavily relied on their team that is well educated. So instead of us giving the young people a lot of qualifications minimum, let us first fix whoever is going to make laws for them. You cannot trust a member of parliament in Nyandarua County, in Nakuru County, with 170 million every financial year. But his only engagement that he has with documentation is a birth certificate. Then you want a young woman who is a banker in a bank, who is handling billions and everything else, to have bare minimum of certain degrees. So I think we need to, we as Kenyans, we need to agree that our constitution is good enough, but we need to make it better. And as we fix our constitution, we need to fix our institution. Because let us stop this thing of we as Kenyans having double standards. Today I'm vying for women rep Nyandarua County. But when I go to Mashinani, before I talk to the women, they tell me, now you know you've come and we really like you, our daughter, but please, what are you leaving us with? You see? So you are telling me for me to tell you I can make a good member of parliament. It's not about how I can represent you in parliament. It's about what I can leave. Then, well, yes, I'll go take a loan, come give you the money. Then I'm gonna buy some lessons and I'm gonna do some few things and I'm gonna brand myself properly. I've spent maybe 200 million for me to be elected as a women rep in Nyandarua County. Then you expect me to go to parliament. Then money is brought in the corridors of parliament for me to pass a finance bill. And an innocent Kenyan thinks that this parliamentarian is gonna refuse this money, yet I have a deficit of 200 million when going to parliament. We need to bring down the cost of an elected leader to get into office. Because when we talk about a governor in Nyandarua needs half a billion for you to be elected. When we talk of for you to see the light of the day in Nairobi County, you need close to 1 billion. Who is going to give you back this money? You're going to use public coffers. You're going to use corruption. And again, who is going to be at the loss? The voter who asked you for the money, you gave them the money, but again, they'll still be demanding for you to be accountable. So we need to balance the double standards maybe.
Okay, Majus, in terms of members of parliament, this conversation has been going around. How much of a role have members of parliament played in getting us where we are as a country?
First, I agree with my colleagues that qualification is a parameter and it matters a lot. But again, there is a bigger than that, patriotism. And I'm talking because of patriotism, because the people, even who fought for independence, the Dedan Kimathi, they didn't have this education. But they realized that they were in this cause for their country. If you look at the regime of Jomo Kenyatta, when Kenyans was we were laying the foundation of this country.
Right.
Most of the people in offices were class 7, form 1, form 2, form 3. They didn't have this university education. But because of the patriotism, being a patriot of the country, you are doing this for the country. You could see that is the time we had very solid institutions. We had the Kenya Coffee Corporations. We had the tea was doing well. We were the best producers of the tea and coffee in the world. We learned in primary school that there was a time Kenya was the top producer in Africa of those institutions. Look at even the government of Moi. The government of Moi, he had some of the people who are not so much educated in his regime. But people usually say that Kibaki gave us free primary and secondary education. What they don't realize that when Kibaki came, he did not build a single school. He found the structures, the education structures were already there.
It's already there.
Anytime Moi had a fundraising somewhere, he was not fundraising an empowerment to give pastor 50 million or 20 million. You could see, you can mark all the fundraising that Moi did from Mukambani, Mount Kenya, and everywhere. He was building a school somewhere. And that's why we had so many national schools. Go even to Baringo, where he comes from. We had giant national schools. Infrastructure for education were already there. Because during that time, it was not like we have a country. Yes, we might have our own weaknesses. There is corruption at a certain scale. But at the same time, we are looking at the country. Look at even the people who fought for the multi-party democracy. We had at the top people who were learned, Akina Matiba and everybody. But go down there, look at that time, the people who bore the burden of carrying Kenya into multi-party, most of them were students. But they knew they had a country. I'm saying this because we have members of parliament who are so much educated, are lawyers. A case example, Karuma. He's an advocate. He understands the law. He understands the role of a parliamentarian. He understands the representation. He understands the registration. He understands the oversight of the executive. But he is there. He cannot even oversight anything as a lawyer because he has become a choir to the reigning regime. He's telling them ni 2 term, mpende msipende. It is our time to eat. That is an advocate. So it is not lost to Kenyans that the issue we are having is that we have a bunch of parliamentarians who don't understand their law. Most of them, in fact, most of them understand what they are doing. We have the majority leader.
Right.
He brags to have attended the cream de la cream of our institution from even the high school. He says he came from Alliance. He went to Alliance and usually asked people, how many of you here went to Alliance like me? But he is the one overseeing the empowerment. He is the one overseeing those institutions being undermined. When we have a president who brags to be a PhD holder and doing the things he's doing, are we really blaming the education? Because we'll be doing unfair. It will be unfair for us to blame the education while seriously the morality and patriotism of our parliamentarian is something that is left for anyone to decide. The reason I'm saying this is because one of the former Interior Cabinet Secretary, Fred Matiang'i, when they were leaving the office, he said, be very careful because we are seeing a scenario in this country. One day, the people who will be left to oversight, to represent and to legislate will be wash and drug dealers. That's what we're having now. People who are there to accumulate. People accumulating money. You look at the people who are supporting this regime. Tell me one of the, maybe the top choir or sycophant of this regime who doesn't have a chopper right now. Most of them are going with a chopper from Akikuyu here to Thika here. Somewhere you will use 100 shillings only. People are fueling choppers so that they can go and give the Mama Mboga 2 kilograms of maize.
Right.
So my issue is not like we don't have qualified or people who understand what they are doing in our institution. The issue is that we have eroded the patriotism so much to an extent that if I'm voted today as the senator of Nakuru, my first role will go there. Go ye and accumulate.
Okay.
That will be the first commandment.
Waziri, how do we reconcile and balance the need for education, the need to be patriotic in Parliament?
Well, I think we need all the three. One, we need to be patriotic. Two, we need to have high moral probity so that you ask yourself morally, is this right to do? And of course, there is a need for a certain amount of education. Today, a member of parliament is more empowered than when I was a member of parliament about 30 years ago. Why do I say so? When I was first elected in 1989, we did not even have the facility to have a driver. So you had to look for a friend to drive you. And when you don't have a friend to drive you, you have to drive yourself. We didn't have even this facility of somebody having a PA. We didn't have a constituency office. We did not have any money going to the constituency. You had to wait for the lagis from the central government to give you that money. But still, there was a certain sense of responsibility that, yes, I'm carrying the burden of so many people. By then, my constituency, 23,000 registered voters. Now it's about 100,000. Now, at that particular time, you knew that I have the burden. I'm carrying the burden of young people, old people, the sick, and the educated. But today, I think we have let go a number of things. One, even when you are given the team of experts, the team of researchers, you do not want to engage them meaningfully to give you the right information for you to take to Parliament. Nowadays, some members of Parliament ask questions for pay. They ask a question from an institution so that that institution does part with a certain amount of money for him to withdraw that particular question and make do with certain amount of money. That's why Shege is right. When you talk of wash in members of Parliament, that's the truth. Because some of them we know. There are crimes they committed, cases were withdrawn, and they're still sitting members of Parliament, and they are proud to have defrauded some people over 200, 300 million shillings. That is a lot of money. Today, a member of Parliament is well endowed. When I was first elected, my salary was 18,000. And we had to make do with that little money, get to the constituency, get back to Nairobi. And mileage claims were on the basis of you traveling. But today, it's almost 52 weeks in a year. They get that mileage. That's why the members of parliament were either jailed or they ran out of this country because of making false mileage claims. So today, a member of parliament is slightly more comfortable than the days we first came into parliament. Thanks to the late Peter Castro Luaringo, who brought the Parliamentary Service Commission, which was now put in the constitution as an instrument to assist a member of parliament to feel comfortable. The issue is that as a nation, we must ask ourselves, where did the rain start beating us? And the rain started beating us when we did not respect individuals called constituents who elect you to get to parliament or to get to the presidency. Now, the most important thing is what Njeri said at the beginning. We need what we call social re-engineering of our people, for them to realize that when you are electing an individual to go and represent you, this is a worker that you have set to go and assist you. You cannot ask your worker to pay you in the morning for you to allow him to weed your maize. You must allow him to go, do the job, and if he's not doing the job, then you don't reward him at the end of the day. Otherwise, there is so much pretense that we expect leaders to be moral, and the people who elect these leaders are expected to be corrupt. And corruption breeds corruption. If you are corrupt at the time you are looking for votes, like now, I'm told you there's so much money in Mbere, there's so much money in Malava, there is so much money in Banisa, there is so much money in Magarini. If all those constituencies have a lot of money doing the rounds, you realize even in Kasibul, there is a lot of money and a lot of violence. If you are killing somebody to be elected, it tells you there is something more than just representing the people that you are talking about. So it is something that we must have what we call national conversation to ask ourselves as Kenya, is this the way we want to go? And whoever is elected president in the next election, I beseech him or her that make sure that we have national conversation, whether somebody is in the opposition or minority or in government. Religious groups must also get involved, because some of the charges, some of the religious groups, they are part and parcel of this corruption process. That's why in the last general election, they were singing William, 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 because he was able to visit them with some small amount of money. Little did they know that he was giving them that money to blind them for him to loot from the state.
All right, thank you, Waziri, and indeed we will continue with this conversation. We continue to look at what is expected later today before President William Ruto gives his State of the Nation address at Parliament building. We have been focusing on various issues, concerns from Kenyans across the country, things to do with the high cost of living, taxation, and education, poor healthcare, and all those issues. Let's take a short break. We'll be right back.
People Daily, Kenya's trusted newspaper, is